welcome to this week's Downton Abbey, the Downton Abbey chat show. It's season 5, episode 4. So, last time, there was some drama for the Dowager Countess. We find out Granny had a past. So, at the beginning of this episode, the Dowager Countess and Isabel went to visit the Russian refugees, who Rose has been working with a lot. So they're like, surprise! And they go and visit them. I guess they're staying in like this crypt in a church. It's just really sad and dark. And everyone's wondering, what is the story with the Dowager and the prince? And she's all like, oh, I bet he thought I would never come see him. And he's like, no, I thought you would come. Oh, snap. So of course, you know, he's in a very bad place right now. He's a refugee in a foreign country. And we also find out that his wife, the princess, is missing. He doesn't know where she is because she's exiled in another country. So who knows where she is? But the Dowager really wants to help. So we still didn't really get to know like what's going on there, but we'll get there. So someone really needs to clue in Lord Grantham on what's going on. Just like in the world, maybe just even in his own house. He encounters Mrs. Patmore with a bit of an attitude and he's like, I wish I knew what that was all about. So, of course, Mrs. Patmore is upset because she really wants her nephew's name to appear on the Downton War Memorial because they won't let his name go on the one from his village. So she's like, maybe we could do it here because Carson is the chairman of this war memorial and blah, blah, blah. And what's his name? Robert is also like, so what's up with Shrimpy? Why did everyone freak out when I asked about him? And Shrimpy is Rose's father. And Mary's like, didn't you realize, like, he's gonna get a divorce? Duh. So Shrimpy is going to be visiting Rose to tell her in person. So it's pretty apparent from his letters that's what's going down. So thank you for telling Robert what's up. So finally we get a conversation between the Dowager and Isabel, and she spills the beans about Prince Karagan. I probably said that wrong. But it turns out, back in the day, he asked her to run away with him. That is scandalous, and it seems like she was considering it because I guess that marriage with her and her Lord Grantham, not the best ever, but he got her to stay with a Fabergé framed photo of the children. So I guess that keeps your wife around. I don't know. It's pretty crazy though. You know what else is crazy? What the hell was going on in the kitchen? Mrs. Patmore is fed up with Daisy and her studies. It's taking away time from working, and Daisy is not just studying math anymore. She was studying history and the Glorious Revolution. Mrs. Patmore is just like, you gotta do your work, girl. So also Thomas is like stealing spoons, and everyone's like, I hope he's not cooking up in his room. And Baxter is like, oh, I'm sure it's nothing. Why is Baxter vouching for Thomas? Hello? He tried to blackmail her. It's crazy. I don't know what's happening. But there was a real OMG moment. I thought this episode in general was really good. There were a lot of great moments, but whoa, Lord Merton shows up all nervous at Isabel's house, and it turns out he was nervous because he was proposing. And at first I was like, because we know Isabel is kind of like, he's like rich and I'm me and it's just not gonna work. But his proposal was so awesome. He was like, a lot of guys like me want to get married again because they're old and lonely, but I'm doing this for romantic reasons. And he's like, I love you and I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Wow. I'm not doing it justice. That was all paraphrasing, but it was awesome. And he's like, I want you to think about it. Just take your time. And he's like, I guess I should go because any conversation right now would be awkward. So he leaves, and it seems like she's kind of maybe thinking, this could be cool. And side note, I just think it's so crazy how people would just propose without even dating. Like, they just hang out a couple times with like a bunch of other people around. It's nuts. But anyway, let's get a pre-dinner check-in. turns out that Shrimpy and that dog flirter, Mr. Bricker, will be visiting at the same time. Okay, so also we find out that Edith is going to be staying away from Marigold for a while. She's like, yeah, Marigold's parents are fed up with me. I've been around too much. And Robert's just like, yeah, I thought that would happen. That's so sad. And Mary lets everyone know that she's going to be going to London for this dress show with Aunt Rosamond. Also, you know who lives in London? Tony Gillingham. And she's going to break up with him while she's there. It's gonna be weird. So Edith has some alone time with Lord Grantham, and she tells him there's been a development in the disappearance of Michael Gregson, her beau, and it turns out that in Munich, the thug leader who was most likely involved in his disappearance is on trial, and they're getting really close to finding out what happened that night when Michael disappeared. So of course this is gonna bring up a lot of emotions and tough times for Edith again. Is she ever happy? It's so sad. But we'll come back to that. So let's talk about the fashion show in London. There were a lot of crazy things walking down the runway. And Rosamond took this opportunity to ask Mary about Edith because she seems really down lately, as usual. And Mary was telling her about how Edith was, you know, she took a liking to this one child. And of course, Rosamond knows what's going on because she went away when Edith had the baby. So she knows what's up. But she almost blew her cover. But Mary didn't really notice. So anyway, she was too focused on the fashions. So this one dress goes down the runway and Mary's like, oh, yummy. But was she talking about the dress? Or was she talking about Charles Blake, who she spotted across the room? He was looking good. But he was there with one Mabel Lane Fox. Do you guys remember who that is? That is Tony Gillingham's ex-fiance. So they go over to talk to Mary, and it was pretty awkward. She was all like, oh, it's not every day that you meet the woman that you were jilted for. So then she leaves. Toilet is flushed, and Charles and Mary are chatting on their own, and he's all like, so how long are you gonna be in London? What you doing tonight? So he invites Mary to dinner, and she's like, hells yeah. So because Mary's in London, naturally Anna is also in London. So Mary sends Anna off to bring this letter to Tony Gillingham so he knows where to meet up the next morning for the breakup. So Anna goes to his place, and they kept saying it was in Albany. So this guy notices Anna there, and it's really creepy. He's like watching her, and then she goes to Piccadilly Circus, and he follows her there. Like I said, super creepy. Is he a private investigator? Like, what's going on? It definitely seems like someone was watching Gillingham's house. So we'll come back to that. Back at Downton, Edith is doing a little creeping of her own. She was kind of following the Drew family around, watching them, and then she decides to give them a visit. She wants to hang out with Marigold, and she's turned away, and it's really sad. So downstairs, well, actually this is a mix. Carson finally tells Lord Grantham why Mrs. Patmore is upset, and he's like, oh man, that sucks. So he tells Carson to bring her upstairs, and Lord Grantham's like, you know what? There's not really anything I can do. There's a lot of laws in place about these memorials, but he tells her, I do agree with you. I feel awful that you're in this situation, and I wish that there was more I could do. And she's all like, thank you very much, sir. And she's still pissed at Carson because Carson was kind of just like, why should he be on the memorial? Or the memorial. So it was a little awkward. Or the monument, sorry. So let's talk about Mary's dinner with Charles Blake. She pretty much hints at the impending breakup with Tony, and Charles seems pretty intrigued. He's like, oh, why are you breaking up? What's going on? So they were talking about that, and it seems like Charles might still be interested. I know I didn't like him at first, but I really like him now. So back at Downton, Shrimpy and Simon Bricker have arrived. So, quick little things. Shrimpy was talking to the Dowager Countess, and he agrees to help find Prince Karagan's wife. He's gonna, do his best. And he also tells the Dowager about his divorce because his wife is, I think, the Dowager's niece. So she's like, I don't approve of this, but whatever. I don't take sides. Right. So Bricker, on the other hand, is flirting it up with Cora, of course, and he's like, so you think I could stay an extra day or 1,000? And she's like, of course. You know that Robert is not going to be happy about this. But let's talk about downstairs again. Baxter figures out that when Thomas left for that day, it wasn't because his father was ill. It was because he was going to get some sort of treatment for himself, and now he's trying to keep it up on his own. And it sounds like it's not going well. That was really freaky when she passed by that room and you could hear Thomas screaming, and he was like, it sounded like he was in a lot of pain. But then she also found that article, I guess it was in a magazine, called Choose Your Own Path, or an advertisement, Choose Your Own Path. Is this some kind of like scared straight thing, or like this medicine or something is supposed to make him not gay? I don't know. It sounds awful, but I'm really sad for Thomas because he's had a rough go of it, and right. So anyway, Shrimpy and Rose have a moment alone. He's like, look, kid, we're getting a divorce. There's nothing we can do about it. And she's like, that's okay, it's cool, because she doesn't like her mom. So she's like, well, can I live with you, Daddy? And he's like, no, I want you to stay here because things could get really ugly. So she's like, all right. So then she uses this opportunity to ask for his support no matter what when she's ready to get married. She doesn't want him to be like, no, you're not marrying this guy. What if it's an African-American jazz singer? Will that whole storyline be returning? I don't know. But there was more alone time for Cora and Simon Bricker, and again, he is laying it on thick. He was like, I will burst if I can't tell you how beautiful you are. And right as he's saying that, Robert walks in. And he, I think, is finally picking up on what's going on. Do you see what's going on? This guy is all over your wife. She's not saying no. Hopefully he's gonna realize what's up. So Mary and Tony, the moment has arrived for the breakup. So she's like, we're gonna meet on neutral ground, so it's not totally weird. So they meet at the Peter Pan statue in Kensington Gardens. Hello, William, Kate, and George. So she's telling him it's over, and he's very upset. He can't believe what he's hearing. Yo, you need to keep your voice down. He's just like, I just can't believe that you would tell me that you love me and you would make love to me and then get rid of me. It's not what he said, but it was like that. It was very Nick from last season of The Bachelorette, if you guys watched that, after the final rose, when he's like, if you didn't love me, then why did you make love with me? It was like that, but he was angry, so he totally refused to accept it. He was like, no, this is something that we're gonna get through together, we're gonna work through this. So it seems like that breakup didn't really stick. Should be interesting. We'll see. So Mosley was getting crapped on this whole episode. What's new? So, now that Jimmy is gone, Mr. Mosley was like, does this make me first footman? And Carson was like, well, you're the only footman. So this whole episode, Carson and Hughes and everyone were laying tons of responsibility and work on Mosley, and eventually he's just like, I can't take it, this is too much, it's too much responsibility. So he tells Carson, yeah, I don't really want to be called first footman anymore. Is that cool? He's like, times have changed. I have to take on the responsibilities of all the footmen, and it's too much. So Carson's like, okay. That was his plan all along. He's just going to keep pouring that wine through that napkin. I feel like every episode almost has a scene with Carson pouring wine through a napkin. But anyway, it's time for another dinner scene. And these people need to stop inviting Sarah Bunting to dinner. I'm sorry, but she does not know how to behave. So you could argue like, oh, she's a normal person, blah, blah, blah. Still, she has no manners. I don't know. Maybe I'm totally off, but what do you guys think? Leave it in the comments. So they're talking about how Sarah is giving Daisy these lessons, and she's teaching her a lot of cool stuff, and she calls out Lord Grantham because he's all like, yeah, I don't know if maybe it's kind of not a good idea to keep up with these lessons for Daisy, and she calls him out. She's like, do you even know the undercook's name? And he's kind of like, of course I know her name. And then Mary totally sticks up for him. She's like, it's Daisy, duh, we all know that. And Lord Grantham's like, yeah, it's Daisy. So, I mean, even Tom was sticking up for Lord Grantham. He was like, okay, you need to like chill out, Sarah, stop please. He looked super uncomfortable. So then this keeps going on, and eventually Sarah's like, well, why don't we have Daisy come up here and see what she thinks about the lessons? So at first everyone's like, oh, I don't think that's a good idea, no. But then Lord Grantham is like, yeah, let's bring her up here if that's what you want, and let's bring up Mrs. Patmore too. Let's see what they have to say. So they go upstairs to the dining room, and they're just like, seriously. So Daisy speaks very highly of Miss Bunting, and she's like, the classes are great and I love it and it's awesome. And they're like, yay, we're so glad that everything's going so well, glad to hear it, yay. Lord Grantham's like, yes, let's keep it up, I'm glad it's going well. So then you think, okay, it's over, it's all gonna be okay. But then Sarah turns to Lord Grantham and she's like, are you really happy about it? Because it doesn't seem like it. And Mary's just like, let it go. She was about to go all Adil Dazeem. And at this point, Lord Grantham cannot take it anymore. He can't even. So he stands up, he throws his napkin on the table, and he's like, leave and never come back. He was really pissed. He storms out of the room, and you just see Tom's face, and he's just like, he was really upset, and it was really sad to see. So the best part of this whole scene, everything is really tense, and then the Dowager Countess is like, Edith, are you still writing your very interesting column? And she just goes on with that conversation. It's ridiculous. But yeah, that dinner scene was nuts. So Shrimpy talks to the Dowager and Isabel again, and he's like, guess what? I did some searching, and Princess Karagan may be in Hong Kong. That's crazy. So I'm guessing we'll get more on that next week. A couple of other quick things. Daisy is going to help Mrs. Patmore write a letter to the War Office because she has all of this knowledge now. She's not afraid, and she's ready to help Mrs. Patmore. Also, Anna was spotted in London by the plainclothes police officer. So that guy wasn't just some random creeper. He was a police officer. And Anna's going to be questioned next week. Alright, and at the end of the episode, Lord Grantham is talking to Tom and Mary, and he apologizes to Tom for what happened at dinner. Tom's like, it's cool, like, I understand, that was rough. And then they're talking about that potential business deal to build houses on, I think it's Pip's Corner, and he's like, we're not going to accept this offer from Wavell to do this, because Wavell is going to destroy what everyone loves about Downton. And they're just like, ugh, this again. But then he's like, we're going to find a builder who won't destroy it. We're going to make a profit. It's going to be great. So they are going to sell that land, it sounds like, to build more houses. So he is moving forward with things. Should be interesting. So let me know what you guys thought of this episode. What's going to happen with Mary and Tony? Is he going to let her break up with him or what? And what'd you think of the outburst at dinner? And what'd you think of the Dowager Countess and Prince Karagan? It's crazy stuff. So leave your thoughts in the comments, and until next week, much love.